He's a member of the 2020 Paralympic Wheelchair Rugby team to Tokyo and a silver medalist. Joe Jackson, welcome.
Hi guys.
Hey, Joe, I watched some of that Paralympic game, and boy, it was a tough battle with Great Britain, and you guys came away with a silver. Out of curiosity, when they were hanging that silver medal around your neck, was that thrilling or a disappointment that you guys didn't capture gold?
I think it was a little bit of both. It was right after the game, and we were just a little disappointed that we didn't win the game. So it's like, oh, we lost, but we did win a silver medal. So both of both of it.
Yeah, I could see where there could be a little bit of the each of those two. Silver though is a pretty outstanding accomplishment. What you guys did was really amazing, especially in the pandemic year. Tough year to keep things together. So silver shines pretty bright, but I know you guys will be fighting for the gold next time around. Hey, hey, Joe, let me go ahead and rewind a little bit in your life back to 2005. So here you are. You're out on the football field, and obviously this is a sport you truly love. You go in for a tackle, you're hit, you're down on the ground, and boom, there you are. In a sport that you loved so much, football, you must be thinking once they got all the pieces put back together, I'm never going to be able to hit or get hit again. And then all of a sudden you find murder ball.
Yeah. I had a former teammate come in, and he showed me his chair after I'd seen the documentary Murder Ball, and I was like, okay, uh, this looks awesome. It's fast. It's a sport. I love team sports and kind of competing for something bigger than myself. And I got in his chair, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And then probably like a year later, maybe a year and a half later, I was able to actually get in a chair, and hit somebody. It wasn't the hardest hit, of course, because I was very newly injured. But I love it. As soon as I got in that chair, I fell in love with it.
No, you're a football guy. So, the sheer notion of wanting to hit or be hit is there. And now all of a sudden you really have that opportunity again. So, rugby gives you essentially a whole new lease on life. What was that like just to be able to re experience having that kind of fun again?
It was huge. When I was in the hospital, I was never really down on myself. I was more like, all right, what's the next goal? I'm gonna achieve this and then move on. And I'm an athlete, so it was all about just being competitive and using what function I still had and just trying to get better with it, get stronger with it, and then at the end of the day, be able to compete again and eventually on the highest level that's possible.
So, Joe, let's go ahead and cover function a little bit. Knowing out on the court, you have a total series of 8 points, that ranging from 3-5, that being the most able player, down to a point 0.5. You play as a 1.0. And my understanding is that basically you guys are called pickers. And obviously that would be because you're out there to set picks, try and get the ball, cause chaos. Give us some of the dynamics for people who don't understand exactly what it is that you bring to the table as a 1.0. What are your duties out on the floor?
My duties. The most basic way to explain it is I am your smallest offensive lineman, right? Like a fullback. I am leading the way for the ball handlers on offense. Like a lineman, you're leading the way. You're creating holes. You're creating space for your ball carriers to get through and do what they do best, which is move around, juke, and score, right? Um, I don't have the best hands. I can catch great, but if you're passing me the ball, hopefully I'm wide open and I'll catch it. Like I said, my fingers don't work individually, so I'm not your ball handler. And then on defense, because we have that picker, really it's a defensive chair. So I'm trying to stop the ball handlers or take out their picks so that my offensive, not my offensive players, but players in their offensive chairs can stop the other players in their offensive chairs.
I noticed, Joe, as I look at a lot of the pictures and photographs and film of you guys, that each one of the chairs is designed a little bit differently. And, whereas Chuck Aoki, the 3.5 guy, basically your quarterback, his chair is built a little stubbier, a little bit more for movement, whereas your chair has more or less, a very hard bumper on the front. I mean, like something that's really used for ramming.
Yes. Um, Not the biggest hitter, but I mean, I do like to hit when it makes sense. But really, that's there as like your kind of your last line of defense. You really want to use your wheels more than that picker because, like Chuck Aoki, he can hop over a picker. Like you can sink it in, he'll wait and hop out of it. It's just like, well, that sucked. So
Another thing that I noticed about you, you talked a little bit about hand function. And I see that a lot of the players are wearing pretty heavily taped or wadded up gloves, and there's some kind of a clistery. I see that black clistery device that or substance that's on the gloves. Is that there to ensure grip on the ball? And are there any types of limitations in terms of what you can put or use on your hands?
you can almost use anything as long as it's not sharp and gonna hurt the other players out there. Like I use rubber on the back of my gloves to give me more grip when I push. I also use Clister to put on those push rims to make sure it's tacky, so I'm not slipping. I'm not missing pushes at a very crucial time.
I'm just kind of curious because there's not a lot of differentiation between you and, say, Jeff Butler, who's your point five in terms of classification. But what are the differences in role just in that point five, that one little degree of ability?
So the roles similar, it's the same role. Your low pointers are your generals on the court. Like they're telling everybody what they can do, what to do, and everybody's really kind of focused on how can I work around Joe. Like all right, he's your lowest functioning person on the court in like a 3-2-2-1. So they're working based off of my movements, right? Because they got more function, they're faster. But as far as like point 0.5 and 1, the biggest difference, it's function. I have a little bit of triceps and my wrists, I have wrist flexion and extension. And that makes a big difference with pushing, with catching the ball. And that's pretty much the big difference. Otherwise, the role is the same.
Boy, that's really so interesting for me to learn. Just the fact that you guys play general out on the floor. I mean, you're essentially designing and setting up plays so that the big superstars, the Aokis get out there and they have that opportunity to score. It's really impressive to see the way the whole tally of 8 points works together in one function to make the team the best it can possibly be.
Yeah, it's important. It's like I said, team sport, team chemistry is huge, and being able to know what your picker can do and what he can't do is extremely important. That's just like knowing what everybody on the court can do and can't do. Like, and it's a lot of communication, honestly.
Hey man, going back to the Paralympic game, I noticed that I watched the game and it was a very exciting game. You guys were always in it, but it was tough because you never got over the top. I mean, you never really gripped that point where it was so comfortable that Coach James Gumbert could mix his lineup in too many different directions. And I noticed that you didn't really get to play a whole lot in that game. Was it really difficult to be on the bench and keep your head in the game for the entire game without really getting in, knowing that if you had been called, if your number was called, you were going to be ready to go?
No, it was. I mean, I didn't play in that game or the first time we played GB, unfortunately. But like we're our biggest cheerleaders out there. There weren't any real fans. Like the volume of the crowd wasn't really an issue. So really, I'm staying in the game. I'm yelling out clock. I'm yelling out the shot clock, the game clock. Hey, pick and roll, do this. Hey, watch out, there's a guy there. We're screaming in the key when the GB's coming down and they're on our court. Like The bench was huge. It's
I,
extremely
I'm
important. So
curious, man. Who's your other 1.0, and what was it that he functionally brought to the table that Coach Gumbert saw that he wanted him to play over you?
we have two other 1.0s. So Chad Cohn, I believe he played that game, and then Lee Fredette played probably in the first round of GB. I think it's seniority as well as knowing. Like Chad's been there since '09, and he was like our number one, I guess you could say. So and he has a little bit more function. It's faster, but
Are you already starting to look forward 2.5 years now to Paris? I mean, it's not that really far away. Are you considering that as your next option? Are you ready to go again?
yeah, we actually have tryouts this weekend for the 2022 team. So every year we have to try out. It's not like, oh, you made it, you're good to go. And then after that, there's little mini tryouts within to make the traveling team, which is each camp. Like I look at each camp as a tryout. I'm never comfortable. I'm never like, oh, yeah, I'll be good to go. Because there's times where you don't go. You think you're doing well, and hear the coaches say, oh, you're good, you're great, and then you don't get called. So it's like, I wish you would have told me what I wasn't doing right, right? So you can never be comfortable. And yes, I'm looking forward to trying to compete in 2024 as long as my body holds up.
I saw, some information on you where they talked about when the team was reduced from 16 to 12 and you got the call. It's so important, Joe, to have family support. And it sounds like your family really rallied around you and there was a lot of excitement in you making the team.
Yeah, I think I might have blacked out when it happened, but um, my name was called first, and like he said a little blurb about me, which was great, and then I heard him say my hometown, and I was like, wow, like finally, like some validation, like all that hard work you put in, and all the times like people don't see, especially over this COVID break, which was weird. Just all the time in the gym and all the support your family has, all the sacrifices, leaving them at home, and it was just nice. It was good. Felt great to finally hear that
It
call.
must have been a really amazing, prideful moment, and I'm just kind of curious, knowing that you were so into sports as a young man, if you could find some way to compare the two, if you had made it to the highest level of football, would it have been any different than what you felt by becoming a Paralympian and excelling in the sport that you excel in now?
I don't know. That's a really good question. So like football, what NFL? That's the highest. I don't think I was going to the NFL. I was not the biggest dude, but I think it's different because you end up going through this life changing event where it's like you're doing great, and then you get knocked down a little bit, and it's like, huh, now what? And you set goals, and you keep going. So I don't. I think this is more important.
You played on some of the world's biggest stages with some of the biggest players. As you reflect on that time, tell me a few of the players that you can recall who have really excelled in the game. Maybe players who have intimidated you or players who just have amazed you.
Um, no intimidation, but Jim Roberts, man, he played a lights out game in GB, and playing against him is it's pretty tough to pick him because that's your job, right? Him, and then I'd say Johnny Coggin, who's a point five. He's probably like one of the top point fives in the world, right next to Jeff Butler. So both amazing players.
Just learning a lot about the game. There's also guys like Riley Bat. What is it about these guys that what is their special ability that makes them stand out in your mind on the floor?
Riley's a different player. Plays the game a little bit differently, but the guy can hop out of picks, man. Like that sucks when you're a picker. Like you sink it in and you think you got him, and he hops right over it and then scores. And you're like, wow, wow. that sucks. And then Jim, he's super fast, and he knows when to when to push and when not to push, and makes you commit, and then just dumps it over, and you're like, sucks. So, and then Johnny. My last thing is Johnny Coggin. Probably one of the hardest .5s to like backpick. We call it backpicking when we don't let them get down in the play in the offense. And GB's so good about sending like all their guys to pick for him to get down because he's so important to their offense.
Hey, one little strange little caveat to this whole thing. I noticed that Jim Roberts from Great Britain was a teammate of yours in 2016 and 17 on your club team. So how odd was it playing against Jim, the big superstar over there at Great Britain, when he was basically playing with you for a couple of years?
Yeah, he was actually with us from 14, 15, and 17, and we won those championships on the national level. But like ever since I joined the scene in 2017 for the national team, we've been playing against GB. So it really wasn't that weird, but like I'm extremely happy for him and GB for bringing home the gold.
Great
At the end of the day.
accomplishments. Thrilled that you guys came away with the silver, and I know you want more. So go ahead and go for that gold. And thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.